What is up, guys? I'm Zoe4 back with a brand new video, and today I'll be talking about one particular Godzilla film that what I consider a great sequel. Most Godzilla fans don't see eye to eye, as most Godzilla fans see this as a boring installment and a very rushed movie. And that movie is Godzilla Raids Again. And today in this video, I'll be explaining why Godzilla Raids Again is the perfect sequel in the Godzilla franchise. Let's get straight into it. Throughout the years, the Godzilla franchise has been around for 70 years and has grown a massive fandom now that Godzilla is more mainstream than ever with the help of Gareth Edwards' Godzilla 2014 film and the birth of the Monsterverse made by Warner Bros. And Legendary. This has led to new fans watching past Godzilla films like the Showa, Heisei, and the Millennium Era, the Showa era being the most memorable. It all began with the original Godzilla, a movie that was way ahead of its time, giving us a story that was an anti-nuke message and mirroring the events of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Ishiro Honda and Tomoyuki Tanaka created Godzilla to be this unapologetic allegory for nuclear weapons, a sense of tragedy that what really were the monsters in the original Godzilla was humanity. Ishiro Honda's Godzilla would make 152 million yen and sell 9.61 million tickets in the Japanese box office, making it the 8th highest grossing Japanese film of its year, along with Seven Samurai. A year after the success of Godzilla, a welcome home party was thrown for Owayo Mori, a film producer at Toho that was away during the production of Godzilla. During the party, Mori went to Tomoyuki Tanaka to begin a sequel immediately, thus bringing Godzilla Raids Again. This movie holds a special place in my heart, as this was the first Godzilla movie I ever watched and what turned me into a Godzilla fan. Honda wouldn't return, however, since he was busy doing a rom-com film called Love Makeup, starring Hiroshi Koizumi. It was director Motoro Oshii Oda that was tapped to direct the sequel, and it would be the only giant monster movie Oda would direct, and have Masaru Sato, who would later compose for other Godzilla movies, giving us that jazz and upbeat scores in the franchise. Akira Ifube wouldn't return due to having a very tight schedule composed for other films during that time. He obviously wasn't available to do it. Now that I gave a quick background to Raids Again, I now want to go in detail of some scenes that still hold up for this movie that pretty much helps why I think this is a great sequel. Because a lot of Godzilla fans see this movie as rushed, and I'm not gonna lie. It was. There are some parts that do feel rushed, but there are some very important parts that still hold up and make the sequel great. But when you push that aside, there's this unsettling and eerie tone in this movie that makes it its own thing, almost separate to the original Godzilla. Just for example, just when Godzilla is emerging in Osaka Bay with his head sticking out of the water and with the eerie music accompanying him.
Take shelter, quick! He's coming this way! Below there! Hurry! Hurry! Come on! Everyone, who they
It's a bit unsettling, but when you look at it, it fits for Godzilla's character because he pretty much is a ghost of the original Godzilla, and I know he's the second iteration of Godzilla, but still, just the way he looks and how a bit unhinged he looks when it switches to close-ups, it's terrifying. It's pretty much terrifying and scary. This shadows Yamane's last lines in the original Godzilla, that if they still use nuclear weapons, another Godzilla might appear. A year later, we get another Godzilla, and I'll get to Yamane in a second because his little appearance in the film is very, very depressing. This is one that I think the story did great, giving us a sequel that still holds on to that message Honda gave in the first movie. And although it isn't mentioned that often, you already know why Godzilla does what he does, hating humanity, and in Raids Again, there's now two monsters, Godzilla and Anguirus. But still, Godzilla is still, the second generation Godzilla still feels that hatred because it's possessed by the spirit of the original Godzilla. Now, going back to Dr. Yamane, who makes an appearance in this movie, but doesn't do much since it's just a quick cameo. But what makes this cameo depressing is just shown Yamane is defeated and is disinterested that there is another Godzilla now that Serizawa is gone. There is no other way in stopping Godzilla. To me, Yamane represents the traumatized citizens of Tokyo that are still recovering mentally after the events of the original Godzilla. Sort of how survivors from Hiroshima managed to cope, mutual support, personal resilience, and peace activism. This is told throughout many storytellings in films and novels, and Raids Again is one of those stories along with the first Godzilla movie. As I mentioned about recovery, the original movie symbolized the devastation and death of nuclear weapons, mirroring the bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Raids Again symbolizes post-war rebuilding and shows a better way forward. After when Godzilla and Anguirus have their colossal battle in Osaka, there are many reminiscences to the first Godzilla, like the camera panning to the destruction, a shot of Osaka up in flames from Hidemi's window, all showing the devastation, but it returns to a more lighthearted tone, not like the original movies. Darker tone was the entire movie. Raids Again, we see all the characters grouped in the communication center, seeing the devastation and everything, but at the end, they're laughing and having this conversation. It represents, like I said, post-war rebuilding and showing a better way forward, which I think was really impactful. Honestly, it's like the original movie, the original Godzilla blew all of us away, and I consider the original Godzilla being the best sci-fi movie of all time, the best monster movie ever. And Raids Again still, like I said, Raids Again still carries Ishiro Honda's message of nuclear weapons, and Oda does that perfectly in Raids Again. Now, okay, I know I've left Anguirus on the sidelines for a bit.
Learn so much, and it is called Anguillosaurus, killer of the living. Anguillosaurus? True.
What makes this film also very memorable is this is the first movie Godzilla fought another monster, and also the first movie ever to have giant monsters fight on the big screen. That right there is peak. And plus, Anguirus, as we all know, is a lovable character in the franchise. And I think the fight between Godzilla and Anguirus in Osaka, it does look like pro wrestling sometimes, but still, that's a big moment, not just for the franchise, but monster movies in general. Like in Tokusatsu, like this was the first time ever we saw two monsters fighting on the big screen, and that trend would continue through the 60s, 70s, 80s up till now with Ultraman, Zone Fighter, Gamera. We gotta thank Raids Again for that. I'm heading to this territory that most Godzilla fans see this as very unnecessary, but I found it to be entertaining, and that is the prison break scene in Raids Again. I'm a defender of it. I know most fans don't see eye to eye with it, but this would be a very intense moment involving human characters in a Godzilla movie. Like, sure, the prisoners had nothing to do with the story. They just they were trying to escape the cops, but then later it backfired with them crashing in a factory, causing a massive explosion. Then Godzilla is drawn by the flames and is drawn into Osaka. It was pretty cool and entertaining. Like, again, I don't know how to explain, but there was just something about it that was pretty entertaining. Now, I want to go into the Kobayashi sacrifice. To me, Kobayashi was my favorite in Raids Again. The dynamic between him and Hiroshi Koizumi's character was great. Like, I see it, like their dynamic was great in the movie. And towards the final act where Kobayashi sacrifices himself to try to kill Godzilla, but then Godzilla kills him and then hits the mountains of the iceberg, causing a huge avalanche. It was although that moment there would have been a great way to end the movie with the pilots trying to bury Godzilla alive from the ice, but unfortunately, for some reason, once they caught the idea, they didn't continue doing and they just went back to their base. That to me, it could have been a perfect ending for this movie, but unfortunately, we had to do a little bit of character development and they decided to go back to the base, and then that's when Hiroshi Koizumi's character explains the plan, showing pretty much Kobayashi's sacrifice found a way to beat Godzilla, and I don't know, that to me was great. I liked it, but I just wish once Kobayashi sacrificed himself, I wish the pilots still kept following Kobayashi's still followed the idea of burying Godzilla in the ice, and once they buried Godzilla in the ice, the movie would have been over. So, as I mentioned this again, most Godzilla fans don't see eye to eye on Raids Again. I still see it as a great sequel that respects the first movie and continues to carry the message from Godzilla to Raids Again in its own way, which Oda did very well. Sure, there are parts that feel a bit rushed, but it still keeps you engaged with the story, with some interesting human characters and some elements from the first movie brought to this sequel. But in my opinion, this is my opinion, Godzilla Raids Again is an underrated sequel, and very underappreciated. To me, now, talking about underrated sequel, what do I mean by underrated sequel? I mean as an underrated sequel in the Showa era, but maybe it would have had a chance up there with the greatest Godzilla sequels. Like I'm talking Godzilla -1, Godzilla vs. Biollante, GMK, so many Godzilla masterpieces. But the movie, at times, it does feel rushed, and if it weren't been rushed, I feel like this movie would have been up there with those great Godzilla sequels. It's not the worst we've gotten. Like, this is nothing. This is not the worst sequel that we've ever gotten. Like, Godzilla's Revenge. Come on, guys.
Hey, come on over here. I won't hurt you.
You won't?
No, don't be afraid.
This is way better than that. I feel like this sequel is kind of underappreciated, but that's my opinion. But anyway, that was my breakdown on Godzilla Raids Again. Comment down below to what you think. Share this video with friends, whoever shares video. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.